I'd like for anybody who has any information about my son Seamus to please come forward and please help me. Because that's my boy. That's my guy. His little brother is 14 and it is my son's role model. He's my life. So please help find Seamus.
How does a young member of the Navy go missing after a night of drinking just a few miles from his base? We unfortunately have a large body of water nearby and possible altercations that took place before his disappearance. We also have a mother looking for answers and looking for her son. It's time to turn on the searchlight for Seamus Gray. Welcome back to Brainscratch Searchlight. I'm John Lordan, and welcome to our now weekly Wednesday episode of Brainscratch Searchlight. This is a recent case, and it has some circumstances that really elevate my concern. It was March 17th, 2023, and like many of us, U.S. Navy fireman recruit Seamus Gray had plans to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Seamus had turned 21 just the month prior and was going to spend that Friday night at a club called Ibiza, about 4 miles from the naval base that he was stationed at in Waukegan. Wikipedia says that Waukegan is the county seat of Lake County, Illinois, an industrial suburb of Chicago. Waukegan is situated approximately 26 miles north of Chicago's city limits. As of the 2020 census, the population was 89,321, ranking it as the 7th most populous city within the Chicago metropolitan area and the 10th most populous city in Illinois. Naval Station Great Lakes is where Seamus was stationed and is the home of the United States Navy's only boot camp. It's also the largest military installation in Illinois and the largest training station in the Navy. The base has 1,153 buildings situated on over 1,600 acres. It has 69 miles of roadway to provide access to all those facilities. It basically functions like a small city with its own fire department, naval security forces or police force, as well as its own public works department. Seamus had been assigned to the Surface Warfare Engineering School. In terms of the night in question, several details are just not publicly available. I don't know exactly how Seamus got to the bar. I'm sure he could have walked it in about an hour if he didn't have a ride, but what we do know is that when he reached the bar that evening, he texted his mother, Carrie Gray, a photo of himself holding a green beer. She in turn FaceTimed him back to say cheers. At 10:30 p.m., Seamus was seen on CCTV cameras leaving the building only to return around 1:30 a.m. just before closing. Not long after re-entering, employees asked Seamus to leave. They claimed that he had been in an altercation and that he was too intoxicated to remain on the premises. One of these altercations possibly involved someone trying to pickpocket his wallet. We have footage to watch, I believe, on that altercation. I've done my best to zoom in on it, and while it's been described in several media reports that someone can be seen taking his wallet and throwing it back at him, I just don't see quite enough details to support that claim, but maybe you'll see more. Let's take a look at it together. It's pretty clear that he does wind up on the ground, and it looks like he's got a guy on top of him, but because of that corner of the building, I can't tell exactly what happened to lead to that. But based on the responses I'm seeing from the bystanders, this doesn't seem like much more than two guys wrestling on the ground. If it was due to an attempted theft, I would think that the bystanders would have had different reactions, maybe even trying to intervene, unless they were somehow involved. I just don't know. In any case, Seamus was due back on base by 2 a.m., but he never made it. By car, that trip should have only taken about 10 minutes. Adrian Hernandez, the manager of Ibiza, told WMAQ, "It's just a sad situation for us. We want him to be found. We're doing everything we can to cooperate with the police investigation with the family." Ibiza made a post about this case on both their Facebook and Instagram pages, and they also closed for a night to assist with the investigation, according to what is said on their social media. In an interview I watched featuring that manager, he also said that when Seamus was kicked out, so were the friends that were with him. So it kind of sounds to me like he's not alone, and it did seem like the two men that he was standing outside with early in that video clip might have been people that he knew. Thankfully, there seems to be a lot of CCTV in this area, and another clip would make it clear that if those were his friends or not, later that night Seamus would end up alone. Video shows him leaving the bar area alone through a back alley as he passes a dumpster and looks at his phone. I can't help but think about the similar circumstances and footage that we saw in the Corey McKeague case, where it's presumed that Corey fell asleep in a trash bin, which was processed the following morning. There are actually several incidents of that happening, including a recent one in Tampa where a man was thankfully spotted by the driver after the pickup and rescued. Now, I'm not certain that's what we have happening in today's case. The alley behind the club would put him on Sheridan Road, and with a quick left on Washington Street, he would be heading towards Lake Michigan, which is only a few blocks from there. Lake Michigan is one of the 5 Great Lakes of North America, and it's massive, with a surface area of over 22,000 square miles. It also reaches as deep as 295 feet. There is more footage, but I don't believe it's been released publicly. Deputy Chief Brian Mullen reported to the press that several other businesses caught footage of Seamus at the water's edge. This would also be in the area of his last cell phone ping. While looking at the photos of this area, I've also seen some comments about the concrete in this area and that it can be particularly slippery at times. Unfortunately, I think the most likely scenario we're looking at is one that we've spoken about a lot on this channel. A young male who disappears near water while intoxicated. It happens far too often. And despite several different serial killer theories, like the smiley face killer or the pusher, this is a trend that's been observed and noted for decades. CDC.gov's drowning fact sheet tells us that nearly 80% of people who die from drowning will be male. Every day, 10 people die from unintentional drowning, 8 of those very likely to be men. And while alcohol is already a risk factor noted in those numbers, we have something else to consider. In 2006, CNN wrote that in neighboring states, Minnesota and Wisconsin, at least 12 college students in the previous 10 years had wound up deceased in the water after wandering away from a party or a bar alone. It's a disturbing trend that we've seen time and time again on this channel. Of course, we don't know for a fact that that's what's happening in today's case. We also have some conditions here that we don't always see in those other cases, that being Seamus was involved in an altercation. Yes, he's last seen walking alone, but it leaves some potential that a person could have caught up with him later and that someone out there might have a reason to harm him. For some reason, which I still can't find clarity on, it would take several days for a missing persons report to be filed, despite him going missing in the early morning hours of Saturday, and I would think probably being noticed as missing over the weekend from the people that he was staying with at the base. It wouldn't be until the following Tuesday afternoon that the Waukegan Police Department was finally given his missing persons report. A formal search for him was conducted. It lasted a couple days and involved 100 U.S. Navy personnel, as well as members of the U.S. Coast Guard and local emergency teams. They looked through miles of water and in the woods. Due to it being the end of the cooler months, there was a lack of foliage, which actually gave drones good visual access to the areas that they were searching. But unfortunately, no trace of Seamus was found by those drones. There was 3 canines brought out, and they did show interest in an area by the government pier, once again on the water's edge. That pier is actually located behind Ibiza, and obviously very close to the last seen camera footage that we have of Seamus. That area and the water surrounding it were also searched, but again, no trace of him was found. On Tuesday, March 21st, Seamus's parents were contacted about his disappearance and began their own search efforts while investigators continued their work. It was noted that all of his personal items were found back in the barracks. During this time, Seamus's mother, Carrie, took to Facebook and she shared the last photo that she had of her son at Ibiza holding his green beer. She begged someone to, quote, be brave and come forward. She's looking for information on what happened. She also shared that she and a friend had searched through dumpsters, back alleys, and back doors of buildings, and that those searches seemed endless. Where is my son? What did you do to him? She asks in this Facebook post. On Thursday, March 23rd, more land and air searches were held focusing on the nearby lakefront. Investigators continued reaching out to anyone that was seen interacting with Seamus that night, but they were struggling to find any helpful information. Officials announced on Friday the 24th that they had exhausted every effort to find Seamus. Commander Scott Chastain would say, quote, after an extensive search, exhausting all our efforts, we made it all the way back to the base, and we were unable to locate him at this time. Right now, we are ending our search effort. We've hit everything we could on the ground. We had drones in the air. We had canines out. We had the boat in the water, and we've searched every area we can search at this time. Commander Chastain would also note a grim possibility. If he is in the water, and that's what happened, it may be days or weeks before the body would come back up. Seamus's mother, Carrie, told CBS News that she and her son were never out of touch. We've never not been in contact. The only time I've ever not heard from my son is when he was in boot camp. We talk 10 times a day, whether it's silly memes or it's just texting. Even though we are now coming up on a month of Seamus being missing, Carrie is not ready to give up hope. Quote, I'm holding on by a thread because I'm it. I'm his biggest advocate. I'm his detective. I'm his search and rescue team. I have never given up on him, and I sure as hell won't stop now. I live and breathe for you. She's also hoping for some help. Quote, I'd like anybody who has any information about my son Seamus to please come forward. Seamus lived for the Navy. Seamus loves his country and his family more than anything. Seamus Gray stands at about 6 foot 3 inches tall, and he weighs 170 pounds. He has brown hair, blue eyes, and multiple tattoos on his left arm and a cursive tattoo on his ribcage. He was last seen wearing a pink or light red sweater with matching pants and a green t-shirt. His cell phone has also not been recovered. Matt Mogul, Public Affairs Officer for the Surface Warfare Engineering School Command, Great Lakes, issued this statement. The Navy is aware that the Waukegan Police Department is conducting an investigation in an attempt to locate fireman recruit Seamus Gray. The Great Lakes Naval Criminal Investigation Service Office is assisting with the investigation. Please direct all additional questions to the Waukegan Police Department. The Navy will continue to work with all law enforcement agencies involved in the case. Our thoughts are with fireman recruit Gray's family during this difficult time. Now, I've been keeping an eye out for updates on this case, and there just hasn't been anything else reported up to now. Please share this video with any friends you have in Illinois, and if you have information on this case, please call it in. You can call the Waukegan Police Tip Line at 847-360-9001. If you need to remain anonymous for any reason, you can send in an anonymous tip through the department's website at waukeganil.gov/police. Let's keep those eyes, ears, and hearts open and looking for Seamus. Since 2015, we have always run limited commercial ads for the benefit of the viewers and the families that we're trying to help here. Obviously, we can't do that without support. A big thank you to new patron Randy. If you'd like to help, please visit LordanArts.com. There you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee like Michael Johnson recently did. We really appreciate your support on our mission to run as few ads as possible and help as many cases as we can. Thank you to thesun.com, the New York Post, Wikipedia, CBS News, the Miami Herald, USA Today, Newsweek, and CDC.gov for information contributing to today's story. Also, a thank you to everyone working so hard to find Seamus, and especially those close to his family that are helping support them through all of this. I'll see you again here soon on the LordanArts channel.